I'm the lead artist in Total War Arena. I've been working at Creative Assembly for 10 years. I've been working on games like Empire, Total War, Rome 2, Shogun 2 and so forth. This is Jeff Smith, he's our Senior Development Manager. You've been working at the company for a total of
about 16 months. So I'm slightly new to Creative Assembly, but I've been in the industry a long time, Lionhead and things like that. So as Rob said, we'll take you through some information on Arena.
We're 8 minutes behind.
8 minutes behind, well let's crack on. We need to get to the video,
we need to get to the interesting
gameplay.
Right? So we'll get to the game and then you can sort of ask.
And if we're going too quickly, shout, but you know. Okay.
Slow down, Rob. Slow down, Jeff.
Total War Arena, this is what it is. Okay, so it's a key difference from Total War titles in the past. It is free to play. It's more of a real-time tactic game rather than RTS, but there's a subtle distinction there. It's 10v10 mass battle online game. Okay, at its core, we're going to play some epic scale battles. You'll see that today. And you play with iconic commanders from the past, 3 of which are on the wall here, and plastered around various walls and hallways of Gamescom. So our pillars, just to take a couple of minutes on this, epic scale battles. As a player in Total War, you have your commander and you command 3 units. They're around, could be up to 100 men each. So the battlefield in a 10v10 could get up to 6,000 soldiers. Oops, sure that wasn't expensive. So 6,000 men on the battlefield, and these are big battlefields too. They're places from history. Some are actual battlefields, some are just famous historical sites.
Like Rubicon, where Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, that's more of a map to pay homage to that crossing rather than the actual battlefield.
That's right. Tactics, super important. It's not just about the unit types you choose, because all the units have different playstyles. You'll see how configurable the game is and how deep the game is in a moment. So you choose your units, but actually it's not just about that, it's about where you position them on the map. And how you play them when you get there, whether you leave one hidden and go off with the other 2, and whether you decide to ambush, whether you decide to take people on up front. Tactics are super important, as is teamwork. So we'll be talking about that. Historical authenticity for Creative Assembly, the Total War series generally. History is super important. We love our history. There are an awful lot of books on it in the studio. There's an awful lot of information within the arena around the commanders. And we use history to influence the play styles of the commanders. So they are rooted in, their abilities will be rooted in actually some of the things they reportedly did back in the day. And unique gameplay, 10v10, as we talked about. Give you some context to where Arena has been. We ran a closed beta on Steam in 2015, which ended in early 2016. We took it offline in order to make more changes to the game and to talk to other partners about working with them to publish the title. So during 2016 we signed up with Wargaming. The 2 companies joined forces for them to publish this. That fits nicely in the Wargaming portfolio. Obviously the war aspect is very obvious, but their free-to-play expertise and their history. So they love history, we love history, but we bring something new to their games. This is a much more, entity focused rather than tank or object focused. So it brings a slightly different kind of gameplay. So we went then into a closed alpha at the end of last year, which we ran, updated the game on some monthly basis, did small play tests. And we focused on these kind of things, and we learned more and more about them. We got a lot of feedback. In a way, the sort of first and the last is the crux of the matter, because there's a lot of gameplay in Arena, there's a lot of stats, and you can get deep into it, and hardcore players love it. The challenge for us making it free to play was making it accessible. So we spent a lot of time on tutorials and on the sort of onboarding ramp for players generally through the early tiers of the game.
So we put one of the things I wanted to put in here was a before and after shot of one of our maps. Obviously you can tell the difference, one looks better than the other, that's fine, that's cool, because I'm an artist of course. But the main reason why we wanted to do a change was because we felt that was not readable enough. But we look at that, we've changed the colour tones, we've changed the saturation slightly, but also we've brought out the vegetation. So when you look at that, you don't just go, oh there's trees there, you look and go, I can be covered. I'm going to be hidden. Like I know I'm going to be supported there or protected. You know that there's a road, there's a pathway that you can go up the mountain or up the hillside, and you can tell the difference between long grass and standard grass and kind of mud. And that's kind of one of the things that we learned from the accessibility part and the readability part was in a free-to-play game which is fast-paced, you want to be able to just read stuff second nature. You don't want to just go, right, what ground type's that? What's that over there? You want to just be able to go, I know what that is, I need to be able to position my units here and here and here. So we did a lot of work on that, as well as the UI, trying to describe and explain certain things so you don't have to worry about reading and taking your time.
Okie so, content.
Yeah, so just to go over, usually we do a little bit of a history lesson, but because we're running a little bit late, I won't be able to. But the main differences between the factions is that the barbarians are very much like a skirmish, ambush, quick unit. They kind of all about getting in there, doing a load of damage and then running away. They don't want to be fighting for long periods of time because they will just get hurt. They do have a unit type called the Forks, and the Forks actually ignore shields. They just keep smashing through, but you don't want to stay in combat because they will get hurt. The Romans are all about heavy assault, so you have heavy infantry, well-armoured people that go into the battle and want to churn away at trying to kill. You've also got heavy artillery. Caesar is obviously renowned for using artillery, so his abilities are very much tailored towards support and ranged warfare. And then we have the defensive faction, which is the Greeks. Everyone knows Leonidas now from the film 300, but actually, you know, what he did in history was he held off the Persians, very defensive, and hold the line and support. So that's kind of the different factions. The commanders have different elements to each one, so they have different play styles. Some are easier to master, some are harder to master, but they kind of give you a little bit of a flavour in terms of those different factions.
So overall, in terms of numbers, you know, we talked about the commanders there, 143 units. There are about a dozen unit types in the game, so there's a lot of variety in the gameplay you can get on the battlefield. We talked about maps briefly, we have 9 currently. All of these things will expand as we move through phases, you know, we're a live service, so we'll be adding more content. There's been a whole bunch of features, talked about some of them. We spent a lot of time in UX tests, improving interfaces, you know, accessibility and of stats and so on. And then premium units, which is the final.
We do have premium, and in this game we do have a few premium content. Premium units are actually units that add flavour to the existing factions. So with the Romans, for example, we don't have any archers in that faction. We have like artillery and heavy infantry and cavalry. But if you really care a lot about the Romans and you get to like tier 5 and go, I want to try archers out, you can pay for a premium unit which are archers, will add that flavour into that faction. But if you want to play archers for free, then you can. You can just go to the Greeks and they have a whole skill tree for archers. So it just allows you to have a little bit more kind of choice within the factions. That's what they're there for. And they are balanced within the tier structure.
Yeah, you can't gain an advantage on the battlefield. So that's closed alpha, which we've been in for a while. We're now moving into closed beta with 2 significant new additions to the roster. Boudica, which is on the wall here, a brand new commander update, and the War Dogs unit type. Boudica, I'll have a go talk about Boudica. So Boudica, a very famous Queen of the Iceni tribe back in Britannia. All those years ago, she was very badly wronged by the Romans. They kind of killed her daughters. They took all her land, they killed a lot of people, and she was filled with sort of wrath and fury and desire for revenge over the Romans. And she was very successful, unusually for Britannia at those sorts of times, for uniting the different tribes. So she managed to unite the different tribes and scored some notable victories against the Romans. So her gameplay in Arena is very much driven by that. She has a rebellion ability which brings lots of people together, and she's a very strong ambusher, which is where we decided to take her. But one of her abilities, inevitably called Fury, which is a very, very dangerous charge with all that anger pent up and released. And then there's War Dogs.
Yeah, and War Dogs are a really cool unit. What's different about these units is in the game, in Total War, we have a morale system. And when the morales get to 0, they start to rout. Now the dogs don't have morale. They are one of 2 parts of this unit, so you have the handlers and the dogs. You set the dogs off kind of similar to a cavalry charge, where cavalry comes in, smashes, and then goes away. These dogs do exactly the same thing, except for if you leave them in combat, they will stay until they are fully killed. So what you want to do is, like one of our colleagues uses the analogy of, it's a yo-yo with teeth. You just keep doing that, keep pulling them back, throwing them out, and pulling them back, and that's the best way to use them. Now with everything, we have a rock, paper, scissors mentality. So obviously with the dogs, their weakness is if they stay in combat. So very similar to the barbarians, they are very much about getting in, doing damage, coming away. So very much an ambush kind of type unit. The other cool thing about them is that they can go into the line of sight or the fog of war. They won't extend that vision range, but it's like a blanket. So if they see artillery firing from somewhere, you can send them in underneath the blanket, do a load of damage and come back. If they don't get hurt. So hopefully, they do a load of damage and you call them back and they actually come back. So that's dogs, that's Boudica.
Yeah, let's see, we'll show you how they work. They're not, in a moment, they're not of course overpowered, there are melee units that can give them a lot of damage. Leonidas' shield bash can send them flying in all directions, so everything has a counter. You've just got to know how to deploy. So let's go on to the game. This used to be our front end, it's a screenshot of it. Very much the commander was the focus, but you'd have your 3 units around this rock side and you could edit there, but it wasn't very significant. We've changed that now to a 3D camp, if you like, in the maps, where you can look around the commander from different angles, and the units are very much more of a focal point because they are the key items in many ways. They're what you're really going to cause the damage. As you'd expect from a multiplayer game, we've got global chat. We've also got the ability to party up with 3 others, form parties of 4, and talk with each other across the party. And you can see the status of whether they're ready up online and so on. So if you click the commander icon, you can see all the different commanders split by the factions here. We're playing at tier 6 in this version. You can see all their ability icons on this side. And in this version we're going to select Boudica because she is the new commander.
So as you can see that this is kind of a very easy to read kind of UI. It just tells you what you need to know about the abilities, but if you mouse over them, then you get additional information in terms of what that actual ability does for you. And again with CA and Total War, we love history, we want to shove it in your face as much as we possibly can, so we have lots of information about the commanders, we will have more information about the units, and we do have information about the maps on the loading screens. So again, when you're adding units to your squad panel, we want you to be able to add it as how you want. So you could drag them in, you can press a button, there's different ways in the future where you can see it as well, unit tree. And on the right hand side, this is where you upgrade. So this is kind of the visual representation of your unit. There is another way where you can just see the stats. Well, this way you can upgrade using equipment, and you see a visual change in here, and they also do stat changes. Later on down the skill tree, you'll find that it's not a progression in terms of this one's better, this one's better, this one's better. You'll have a sideways progression, which allows you to go, all right, is this going to give me a better speed boost, or is this one going to give me a better armor rating? So you can play around with it.
So you saw, to give you a voice of rest, you use cosmetic items here, right? No, obviously, gameplay change. And previous to that, you saw the statistical groupings that we have around the stats. So you've got a high-level set of statistics, but you dig into that, you can see all the items that make those up. So there's a lot of detail there if you want it. And then this is the other view, right, the tech tree view for the commanders, and we'll get into unit types in a minute, so you can see how their abilities unlock and how you can modify.
So you can see they're done in tiers, right? So we give you one ability to begin with, so you can learn and master that one, and then at tier 3 you get the next ability. And each one of these commanders has their own unique skill tree. So each commander has their own. Your commander versus my commander of the same type can be very different. So we'll go on to units now as well. We have 3 factions worth of units, like we said, about 143 in total, divided by 3. So we have different trees. Again, we're starting off with 2 unit types, so you can master each one of those. Then later on you can branch to do different ones. So infantry might branch to cavalry, and range might branch to kind of other range units like slingers. Again, like we talked about and Jeff said earlier, we've got statistical groupings here, which again, if you mouse over, you're able to see what that breakdown is. And then when you mouse over the equipment, you get a breakdown of what those equipment pieces do.
And you can also, you change your units here as well. So you've got 2 hallways in. If you like that view, you can use that. If you like this view, you can use that, but it changes the units you choose. So, Miltiades, in this case, you're ready for battle. 2 archer units and a javelin unit or pike unit. And that's useful because you have a diversity bonus if you go in with different types within your units. It's easier with 3 of the same, but your gameplay balance, you're a bit more one-dimensional potentially, and you get a better balance with variety if If they're all different, then that's quite hard game
You don't want to use all different units the same. You need to be able to understand the diversity between them, so we do rule you.
So we set up, you now click the play button and you go into battle. We're going to show you a battle we recorded back at Creative Assembly a couple of weeks ago. The hero was recorded from was Boudica, because that kind of makes sense what we're releasing now. In the prep for the battle, we've got this deployment screen, so you can choose where to position your units. I talked earlier about tactics, and getting the position right at the start is very useful depending on your unit type. You can see all your teammates, you can see what their units they have. At this point, people are chatting to each other, and you'll notice they're drawing on the screen using our telestration tool, so they're understanding what they need to do as soon as the battle starts. There's the enemy base, this was obviously ours, and then when the battle starts, people have a plan and they go right into it.
That deployment screen doesn't come into effect until after the first 5 battles, because we realise that we don't want to just keep giving information to the player, we want to stagger it. So we want you to learn the high ground versus the low ground and where tactical advantage can take place before you get that.
So you'll see in a moment that one of the players will draw a blue line. There's just the arrows, but you'll see someone will actually draw a blue line on the map because it wants to indicate that's where it's going. Just quickly before we talk about all these pings you keep seeing, the win scenarios for the battles is either annihilate your enemy forces or capture the base. There is a time limit of 15 minutes. Battles tend to finish around 9 or 10 minutes, but if they do go on to 15 and the timer runs out, you win if you have more men remaining.
So you can see that we have an achievement system as well. The dog unit managed to attack the pikes just right the first time, so you got an achievement for first blood. We also saw a ping go out here, which was from a radio ping system. It said, please fire artillery here, so we want artillery support. So if you have artillery on your team and you're not them, you can actually ping for artillery help, and then reinforcement comes from an artillery strike. You'll see constantly over here, if you keep looking at the dogs are constantly doing that yo-yo effect. You'll see them hitting slowly but surely, kind of taking down that pike's health.
Coming out like that.
So the pikes are going to try and defend this section, so we obviously want to try and push through because that's the easy part. Jeff mentioned about the capture mechanic in terms of winning. We have major and minor ones. The major ones are obviously the basis, and you want to win that, you want to capture that, and then you win the game. But you have these minor ones. And what these minor ones do is they allow you to increase your vision range. So at the moment, the enemy had the vision range for here, which would have increased. So anyone who was hiding in long grass or low-lying shrubs would be spotted. So ambush tactics make no sense when you're able to be seen.
You'll also see this is a great shot to see the size of the battle, as you can see all the skirmishes going on over here, even all the way over here. So it's a big battlefield. This is Hadrian's Wall, probably the latest battlefield we have in terms of historical timeline from around 400 AD. And it's got some great holes in the wall, so it's got lots of choke points, but you can get all the way around the side, so you can use cavalry on it quite nicely too. There are a couple of other things to point out. There's a threat indicator you might keep seeing on a mouse over of enemy units. That's just to help newer players understand the rock, paper, scissors approach to the gameplay a little bit and know whether they're likely to be taken out or have a good chance of success in attacking an opposing unit. And friendly fire, while I'm in the flow, and friendly fire. Friendly fire exists in the game, and you're warned about it and you do it. There is a cost to that. You may decide as part of your tactics at that particular point to do friendly fire anyway if there's very few allies in the way, but a lot of the enemy.
So you can see now that the dogs have done so much damage to the pikes that the infantrymen are able to come in and start wiping them out. Now, infantry warden would have been damaged by the pikes because the pike wall would have come down, they would not be able to run it. The great thing about the dogs is that they can run underneath the pikes. So what's different now that you'll find that a lot of people who are playing on pikes are actually worried because before they could create a wall and the only way to defeat them was to get round behind them. Now the dogs can come in and start doing that yo-yo effect, it starts to damage the walls. So they have to have support. So you can't just do a pike wall and just expect to win. You have to have archers behind you to be able to fire on the people that are coming towards you. So there is a very diverse way of playing this game. You have to think about the rock, paper, scissors. What are you good at and what are you not good at? And try to do that flow. So you can see it's a high flow. So just want to bring your attention to these bits down here, which is the buffs and debuffs. It's standard, like in any game that you get. But what we want to talk about is mainly this fist icon and this icon here. What that icon means is that you're actually buffing up from a tactical advantage. And what that means is that your left flank is being supported. So if you get your left flank and your right flank and your rear flank supported, then you're strong. And so what you can find is that if you have 3 of the same unit types, 3 infantry, you can stand either side, you can have your left and your right flank supported. But if you only have 2 or 1 left, why not join a friend? Or why not join a colleague? If you see an archer unit there, go in front of them and support them. They will buff you, you will buff them, because they are able to fire over you and hit the enemy, and you're able to protect them. We want to reward that type of teamwork.
So we saw there briefly in the forest there was a unit that was now visible because we got the observation tower right and we could see them beyond our normal field of vision, and they've decided that clearly with this bank of manpower coming down the hill, which has a tactical advantage because you're coming down the hill, they decide to retreat to their base for safety and for defence.
So you saw a minute ago there was a couple of lines that was being shown around the edges of cliffs. You'll see later on in a minute that there are some archers with the fortifications. You're allowed to line up your units if you have ranged units on the edges, so it allows you to fire on the enemy that's coming towards you a little bit easier rather than just doing it behind you.
You've got commander camera here, which is a reasonably recent addition. You can get in close to the commander, follow her around. You can't really battle effectively, with that camera, but it's very useful if you fired off Boudicca's Fury ability and then go in close and personal. You're totally immersed in the action.
So you can see in the bottom left-hand corner as well, shows the damage amount for per entity. So if you see your commander taking damage, you might want to protect them, unless you're Germanicus, who actually likes to get into the action and wants to kill. So one of his abilities is Vengeance, I think, and you want to be able to click that, and the more kills he does, the more damage he does for the unit, but it's bigger damage. So you want to be in the action as much. Whereas Caesar, you don't want to be in the action, you want to be firing artillery. So yes, we have the different abilities.
So we've got a base capture point. Taking out that unit there, which is very effective. So when you go into the enemy base, or they go into yours, they will earn capture points and start gradually capturing the base unless they're fired upon or engage in combat, in which case that knocks back the capture points.
So in a sec, you'll see, like Jeff was saying, one of the dog units is acquiring capture points right now, which is accumulating to this amount here. He's going to attack this unit here, and the amount of points that he has gained is going to be knocked off of this. So as you see, it's been damaged, he's engaged in the enemy, and now he's lost the amount. So what you find is that with conflicts in capture locations, you try to avoid the enemy as much as you can, or you understand that one of your units is going to take damage and you want to protect the rest. You push in, create a pipe wall, try to stop people from attacking you.
Well, this is what's so exciting. In terms of the balance of power, the bar at the top, the Reds are really struggling. There are not many men left, but it's totally equal in base capture. So it doesn't look like at one point they were going to win, but they could easily win by getting the base capture. But
round rat save the day again. So here, what we want to do is we have that team player working as a team, trying to win as a team, but you can have those solo moments where you turn the tide of the battle. He managed to fire off 2 volleys of arrows, which has managed to knock this guy's capture points down, which has effectively enabled them to go on and win. So we want to reward players for that kind of solo effort, but we actually want you to work as a team to be able to do that. And that brings us to the end of our battle, which brings up our battle results screen, which just tells you the amount of XP you gain, the amount of silver you gain, and the amount of unit XP you gain as well.
And there's a leaderboard for kills and deaths, so you can see how you did in those terms with everyone else on the team and the opposing team. But it's not just about kills and deaths. You get XP from spotting, from morale, and capture points. So these things are important to your score and your progression through the game.
We do have a premium model as well, which is more about a month, so if you purchase premium for like a day or a week or a month, you get the 50% on top. If you're not very good at the game and you purchase premium, you're not going to gain anything if you don't get points, so it's worth getting a couple of battles first, then doing it, then you can buff it.
And then your profile, as you play the game more and more, you'll collect information on the units you've played with, the commanders, your win rates, your earnings via them, and finally achievements. So we've got a whole set of achievements in the game. We saw one in that battle, and you can collect them.
One thing I want to add is that that was about a 6-minute battle, I think, or 7-minute battle. But what we want to say is if you manage to unfortunately die and you now are left with not knowing what to do, you can either run around the map with your camera and just view other players to see how they're doing and work out tactics that are working for them, or you can go back to the front end and choose another commander and go straight back into another battle. So waiting all the time.
Okay, so that was the game in core nutshell at high speed. We're going to close beta, as you can see, next week. So that'll be a 24/7 session that will run for a little while, and we'll get lots more feedback. We've got some updates to give out during that, and the NDA will be lifted so people will be able to stream Twitch and so on.
I realise that we're 2 minutes over. I don't know if you guys have got somewhere to go, or if we've got a queue or something that we need to see.
Probably have a queue.
So, has any of you played it yet? Okay. If you would like to play it, we can give you press passes that will allow you to fast track to the front, which is always good, especially in Hall 8 where it's completely mad.
Yeah. So if you can make it to Hall 8,
can we get for our other colleagues some too?
Yeah, of course.
We're actually a team of 5 people here.
Okay.
If that would be possible.
Okay. That's great.
Thanks, guys.
There you go. And then play. I mean, we can talk about it all day.
Okay.
But it's always good to have a play.
yeah, it's good to get hands on, get a feel for it.
Some kind of recipe.
Yeah.